Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing Week 13 in the NFL, and right now we're talking with Scott Kellen from 6centsports.com. Scott Kellen, thanks for being back with us this week.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for having me, Peter.
How's everything going at 6centsports.com? You have a winning week last week, I hope?
We did. We actually had a great week, 5-2. So it was a very good week for us, and some of the games we left off, we won as well. So I wish I would have played them, and excited to finish up the year here. I know last year, I think the last 5 weeks of the year, 13 through 17, we had winning weeks every single week, and hoping to do the same this year.
All right, sounds great. Yeah, a lot of people who do, the kind of statistical modeling that you do tend to actually do better at the end of the year because they have a lot more data to work with. So very happy to hear what you have to say in our videos for the rest of the year. And the first game you chose this week, Chicago at Minnesota. Now, both these teams, underwhelming, in disarray. Minnesota's a 1 or 1.5 point home favorite that totals 49. And, Minnesota is off the tie, which is, somewhat impressive. The Bears got blown out at the Rams. Kind of the obvious play here, though, would be the over at 49. Both these teams have been extreme over-trenders on the year. Minnesota 9 out of their 11 games, and Chicago 8 out of their 11 games have gone over. But that always makes me very nervous when you have a high total. Two teams have been trending over, just a too obvious play. So it always makes me nervous. What do you like here, Scott?
I do like the obvious play. I mean, first of all, I do like Minnesota. Actually, I'm going to play them as well, but we're going to talk about the over. And I was on the over last week for the Bears game. Obviously, that thing started out great for us. Took a little bit of a little bit of anxiety at the end there to get there, and then obviously it flew over the total once it got over. But the Bears are really banged up on defense, and I don't think they can stop anybody. So I liked the game last week because, number one, I knew St. Louis at home was going to have some explosive plays in a controlled environment at home. I think Minnesota will do the same thing. Minnesota rushed the ball. I mean, they always rush well, but they rushed the ball very well again last week. They averaged 5.4 yards to rush. I think they totaled 232 yards. And it wasn't just Adrian Peterson. It was Toby Gerhardt as well. They will do the exact same thing to the Bears. And this is one reason I liked it last week. I knew St. Louis would get their share of the points. And, the Bears are going to get their share of points. Josh McDowell is probably actually been a better quarterback than Cutler. They've got 3 big receivers, 2 receivers and a tight end that they can basically play jump ball to. Mm-hmm. The Vikings are still hurting tremendously in the secondary. So Chicago's going to get their points. The question is, can Minnesota score? And Minnesota's going to get their points. Number one, just because they do score at home. And number two, as I said, the Bears are really, really banged up on defense. They allowed 8.9 yards of rush last week, 258 yards to St. Louis. I know one came, a lot of those yards came on an early play, but they still gave up a lot of yards after that. They gave up 7.7 yards of play as a whole. And as a defense, they're allowing 7.1 yards of pass this year to a collection of teams that only average 6.5, so they're well below average there. They give up almost 5 yards of rush to a collection of teams that average only about 4 yards of rush, or a little over 4 yards of rush. So they're obviously very bad there. And they've actually allowed 20 or more points in every single game this year, the Bears have. And now, of course, they're really banged up. But they've also scored. They've scored 21 or more in all but 2 games this year. I think one was the game against the Lions where Cutler was pretty banged up, and McNown actually came in late to try to save the day for him. So the Bears are going to get their points. And the Vikings, very surprised. I mean, as you said, they've gone over and just about every game this year. They've allowed 23 or more points in every single game this year, and they've scored 20 or more in every game but 2. One of those was the Josh Freeman game, so we know what happened there. But Minnesota, when they have played bad defenses this year, which obviously Chicago is, the totals of their game have totaled 58, 61, 75, 50, 61, and 52. And when Chicago has not faced a good defense, and the Vikings are an average defense, they've totaled 61, 72, 86, 47, 40, 63. So, yeah, it seems like the obvious play, but then the last check for me is, well, what do I make the number at? I make the number at 53 points. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a little bit of value going over. Minnesota's going to get their points at home. The Bears defense is banged up, and I know the Bears will be able to move the ball. With those big receivers against a bad Vikings secondary, they will get their share of the points as well. These 2 totaled for 61 in the first game. 27-24 would not surprise me, and that gets the number for us in this game.
All right, there you go. That's as thorough an analysis as you're ever going to want to hear on one of these plays where it's like, should I take the obvious play or should I, second-guess myself or maybe even bet against what the obvious play is? Sometimes you want to bet into it. Sometimes you want to bet against it. This week we're going to bet into it. Over 49. Thanks, Scott.